Hey everyone, we're here with Eric Stuart, voice actor. You might know him from Pokemon or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. How you going?
I'm good, and don't forget Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yu-Gi-Oh! Sorry, Yu-Gi-Oh! As well.
Yeah, that's the big.
How's Supanova Day 1 been?
It's good. It's good, yeah. You know, you never know what's going to happen on a Friday. And I think we've got a good crowd coming in. It's fun. Nice Q&A today, and looking forward to opening ceremonies, playing a couple of songs. That should be fun.
Yeah, what sort of things do you usually get asked at the Q&As? What's the main topic that comes up?
Anywhere from where do you come up with the characters, the voices that you do for the characters, to how did you get your start in the business. Sometimes it's as strange as, like today, do you ever just talk in strange voices when you're out in public, which is something I do anyway. Yeah. But things like that, yeah. Actually, I usually get the preface of, this is probably the strangest question you've ever been asked, and it's usually not the strangest question I've ever been asked.
What is the strangest question you've ever been asked?
Someone once wanted to marry me as Seto Kaiba. Like they wanted to marry the character. I don't think me, I think just the character.
How did that go down?
It was quite odd. But yeah, I think we'll save that for an over 18 panel.
Yeah, I guess you did Pokemon. That was quite a while ago now. Yeah. But these fans keep coming back to these conventions and talking to you, and a lot of them you would have seen grow up, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm always flattered when someone will say, "You're the voice of my childhood." You know, most of my fan base from all the early Pokemon stuff are in their mid-20s. Things like that. But yeah, it's great. Anime fans are very loyal, and so. And now the original episodes are being re-aired, so they're all watching our original episodes, which is cool.
And a new generation is coming up with Pokemon.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What do you think, at the time Pokemon first aired, what do you think sort of captured the audience so well?
Well, it's funny. I also directed a lot of the shows that I worked on, and so I got a sense of both sides of the glass, as we say, from directing to acting. And no matter what we worked on, someone always tried to reinvent the wheel, coming up with a new way to do these shows. And there's a formula. And the formula to what is successful in these cartoons, and when you change it, it becomes a failure, is that there are characters that everyone can relate to. Not necessarily everyone wants to be the hero, the main guy. They might want to be the best friend or the funny sidekick. They can relate to those characters. And they also have, there's a moral to the story. The friendship is very strong. The message that's given is a positive message. And as cliche as that might sound, to kids that are sort of trying to find their, they might be the awkward kid in school. They might be trying to find the best way to make new friends. These shows were their friends and also guided them in how to find friendships. And so many of the fans come up and say, I had a tough time in school, but you guys helped me through. And I really think that that's been the key to why Pokemon was so successful, is because there were characters that you wanted to be your friends or you could relate to. And when we would change things like that on other shows that we'd work on, or someone would come up with a new way to approach it, they usually failed. If there's not a character that you feel is worth following, the show could be as exciting as possible. Kids won't watch it anymore. They need to feel a connection.
Yeah, and you said a lot of the time it's they don't necessarily want to be like the main character.
Yeah.
It's a supporting, like a best friend. Or,
right.
And that was Brock, who you voiced in Pokemon, was the best friend kind of supporting role.
Yeah, and Brock, obviously Brock liked girls. That was the comedy side of that. But he was also a really good friend. And I think that that's why he was likable. I also played James from Team Rocket, who was a villain, but funny. And also not an evil person, just his job was to try to do something that was bad, but he also was honorable. He had friendships with Meowth and with Jessie, and that was something that was gave him the kind of personality that you didn't hate. You still liked him. A lot of fans are like, James was my favorite character. Now, most people don't relate to the villain, but he was comedic and a good character as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned just previously that you're going to be playing some songs tomorrow.
Yep.
And you'll also be touring when you're down here at Supanova playing some side shows. How did you sort of get into music? Was that before the voice acting or after it?
Musician long before I was a voice actor. My first band was in 8th grade. I loved performing. I love live, live concerts. That's sort of the thing that's the most satisfying for me. When we work in voice acting, I don't know if fans are liking what I'm doing because I'm in a booth. But I love live music, and I played clubs in New York. I grew up in New York playing all sorts of really cool rock and roll clubs. I've toured with big rock and roll acts like Ringo Starr and Leonard Skinner and Peter Frampton. And I got a job in a recording studio thinking I was going to be working with musicians, and they ended up producing voiceover commercials, and that's how I was introduced to being a voice actor. So I've been a musician for probably maybe 15 years longer than I've been a voice actor, and I've been a voice actor since the wheel and fire was invented. Yes.
Yeah, is there any, major connections between voiceover and, singing and that sort of thing?
I think it's the same instrument. Inflection in speech is pitch. And when we stress words, we're changing our pitch. So if you can use your voice as a singer and you understand how to use that instrument, to me, the voice acting became very natural. And I'm not talking about funny voices. I'm talking about just using your own voice. A lot of fans will say, "Oh, I do a ton of different impersonations. I really want to get into voice acting." And I'll say to them, that's great that you can do all of these different characters. But to be quite honest with you, I get the most work, and I've probably financially been more successful speaking like this, because it's my own voice and it's the acting. It's not how many silly voices I can do. And I think being a singer has allowed me to really control that same instrument.
Yeah, are people often surprised, if they're a fan of your voice acting work, that you're also a musician?
Yes. What's great is I don't sing anything that is based on cartoons. I sing all original rock and roll, rock, pop, folk kind of music. And the anime fans are surprised that Brock can sing, not like Brock. But also what's kind of neat is, as I said earlier, anime fans are very loyal. And rock and roll fans are not. Rock and roll fans might like your first album, and then your second album's not as great as your first. They won't buy your third album. But anime fans will watch your first show, and if your second show is awful, they'll still watch your third show because you're in it. They're very, very loyal fans. And what's really cool for me is I like bringing the music to the conventions so that I can introduce fans to the other side of what I do, and that they can get the whole picture. And the anime fans have supported my albums via Kickstarter. Our first professional music video. I guess they would expect me to do cartoon type music, but I don't, and yet they still dig it. And I love to see their faces light up when I start singing, and they are actually like, wait a second, he's actually kind of good. Well, at least I hope they think that. But and I never wanted to do on camera because my music is very legitimate, and I never thought if I was the sort of like the tidy bowl man floating around in a toilet, would you take me seriously if you then saw me sing rock and roll? But as a voice actor, I can do as crazy stuff as I want and keep my two careers kind of separate to a degree, but then bring them together at a convention.
Yeah, you've got all the control.
Yeah.
Right, well, so I guess fans can catch you Tuesday night performing in Sydney.
Yes, at Gasoline Pony, I think that's the name of the place.
And then you've got Thursday in Perth.
Yes, I hear there's a great lineup. Who are some of the other acts that are playing that night?
Should be a good night.
Yeah, don't you think?
Yeah.
No, it's great. One of the things that really means a lot to me is I like. To me, the music community, the creative community anywhere, is sort of the pulse of that area, is the litmus test of that neighborhood, of that community. And being able to play in clubs when we're doing these kinds of tours and meet fellow musicians is very satisfying for me. I really get a sense of the people. And when we look for gigs in towns that we're playing, or cities or countries, my first question is just, how long can I play? it's not about how much money can I make, because what I really want to do is interact with fellow musicians. I mean, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and should you ever decide that you'd want to do something like that and visit, you get an experience that I think that would be life-changing, because you get a sense of that community, of that camaraderie. And so as I've been traveling around and doing these things, I look forward to that. The conventions are great. This is why I'm here. But it's kind of, it's a cool way to get a sense of who everybody is, who, you know, your Sydney people are, your Perth people are, by playing clubs.